All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a look at Chapter 8, Budgets and Financial Records. So we're going to look at two major things, budgeting and planning, and then the very fun stuff, legal agreements and record keeping. So let's just jump in. Budgeting and planning, these are really important things that you need to start thinking about. As you continue in your career and looking for jobs, budgeting is one of the most important ways to make sure that you are providing and that you're aware of all of the different financial needs and planning that you have in the future. And then we're going to look at creating a net worth statement and doing an inventory of personal property. Planning, budgeting, keeping good records, these provide a roadmap that lead to financial security. So if you are not planning ahead, if you are not budgeting, if you don't actually know how much you've invested or how much money you have or how much your net worth is, then you're kind of just floating out on an island having no idea where you're headed. And if you want to have financial security in the future, you need to have a direction that you're going and you need to have a plan for getting there. And that's what these different financial planning basics allow you to have. So income and expenses, there are multiple ways to talk about income. There's gross income, which we talked about a few chapters ago. That is total amount of money that you're getting paid in a year. But then there's disposable income. Disposable income is after you've paid all your bills and you've paid all your taxes and you've done all the things that you need to do, you've paid your mortgage and you've bought groceries and you've, done all of the purchasing you need to do, how much is actually left for you? And that's what's known as disposable income. It's income that you have at your disposal that's not already predetermined of where it's going. And so you need to really think about what you want to do with that disposable income, because that's where you will kind of further your financial goals. A financial plan, then, is a set of goals for spending, saving, and investing the money that you receive. You need to be thinking about a financial plan as you move forward in life. You can think about this as a way to say, what do you want to accomplish in life, and how do you want to get there? That's what visualizing your future could be. So you want to think about changes you could make to accomplish what you want to accomplish. So a budget is a spending and savings plan that's based on your expected income and expenses. So in your budget, there should be money that's coming in and money that's going out. How much am I getting paid this month on one side? How much do I have to pay for all the different things that I need in my life? If you're not balanced, meaning if you're getting paid less than the expenses that you have, you're in trouble. Okay, so a budget helps you to plan your spending and saving so that you don't need to borrow money, so that you don't need to use credit, so you don't need to go in debt. If you are going in debt, it's because you are not using your money wise. This is not always true, but you're spending more than you can afford to spend, and you need to set up a plan so that doesn't happen to you. So in preparing a budget, there's a few steps you need to take. You need to estimate your income, you need to estimate your expenses, you need to decide how much to save, and then you need to balance your budget. So this is a visual of a very simple budget. Let's say you work a part-time job, you get an allowance every month, and then let's say you got a birthday gift. My birthday is in October. Okay, this is for September for Evan. All right, so let's say Evan's birthday is in September. He gets paid $320 for his part-time job. He gets a $20 allowance, and he gets a birthday gift for $40, so he has made $380. Okay, maybe he buys lunch, some supplies, maybe he goes and buys clothes, maybe he goes to the movies a couple times, and then he puts his savings into a credit union. Then that's a balanced budget. Okay, he's accounted for everything. He's taken that $380, broken it down by expenses, and then also included some savings. So Evan's budget is balanced. In a monthly budget, you've got a couple of different types of expenses. You've got fixed expenses, things that don't change from month to month. So that would be things like your rent, things like maybe insurance, things like maybe you are paying a loan off. But then there's variable expenses. Those are things that vary in the amount from time to time. So it might be like groceries. One month your grocery budget may be $250. The next month maybe you spend $300. Or maybe things like entertainment. Maybe you go to see a couple movies one month and then you don't see any the next. Those would be variable expenses that you can include in your budget. It's really important to keep good personal records because if you are keeping good records, you have a very good sense in real time of how much money you have and what you can afford to do and not do. If you are not keeping good records, you're kind of just going throughout your month hoping that you have the money to pay for the things that you're doing, and that can create a lot of stress and anxiety. It's a lot easier to go through life knowing what you can and can't afford and being confident in that rather than kind of hoping that you can do something and then realizing that, oh, maybe you shouldn't have done that. So you should keep 5 types of personal records: your income and your expenses records, your net worth statement, a personal property inventory, tax records, and then other miscellaneous documents. So to go through each of these, an income and expense records, these are things like a W-2 form, statements from banks that tell you, and investment companies that tell you how much money you have and where it's invested. For income records, you want to keep receipts for charitable contributions because those can be deducted from your taxes. Keep medical bills, keep receipts for any kind of work-related expenses. A net worth statement shows a person's net worth based on his assets or liabilities. So assets is the value of all the items that you own, and then money or debts that you owe are called liabilities. So when you subtract your liabilities from your assets, the difference is known as your net worth. So let's say I have $500,000 worth of assets because I have equity, meaning I've paid off a certain part of my home mortgage, I own a car, I maybe have a lot of money in the bank, but then I also have debts or liabilities that add up to $250,000. Then my net worth would be 500,000 minus 250,000, 250,000. So to see an example, here's Anissa. So in January, she added up all of her assets. So she's got a checking account, a savings account, the value of her car, the value of her personal property, add up to $9,300. But then on the other side, liabilities, her loan from a car, her loan for parents, add up to $1,900. So you subtract total assets, subtract the total liabilities from that, and her net worth then is $7,400. That should say these two numbers must be the same. A personal property inventory, it's just a list of the valuable items that you own, which is an important thing to know because it adds to your net worth. So if you know how much maybe you have some articles of clothing, furniture, or appliances that are particularly valuable, you want to keep a list of that. That's what this would look like. DVD player. These are very outdated. Okay. Let's say your CD collection, your CD burner, and your digital camera are worth $2,000. CDs were like these round things that had music on them. I don't know if you've ever heard of this. Same with DVDs, except they had movies. Okay, tax records. You should keep a copy of your tax records for at least 3 years. This happened to me a couple years ago, actually. My taxes had been filed by somebody, and then another person was looking at my tax records the next year and said, oh, if you filed your taxes last year the same way you did this year, you might have lost out on money from the government. And so he went back and refiled my taxes from the previous year, and I was able to actually get an additional refund from the government because he had filed it differently than the person that originally did it. So that's why it's important to keep your tax records for at least a few years, because there may be errors that you need to go back and look at that could actually save you money. Other documents like your credit card number, your card titles, insurance policies, birth certificates, marriage certificates, passports, these are all things that are important to keep maybe in like a fireproof place somewhere. They have those fireproof safe boxes. Okay, second part, legal agreement and record keeping. Let's list the elements of a legally binding agreement. Let's design an effective filing system for your personal records. I know this is something you guys have been waiting for. That was sarcasm. Okay, a legally binding agreement is a contract that is legally enforceable between 2 or more people. Common legal agreements include credit accounts, mortgage loans, rental agreements, a lot of these things that you should look through and actually read before you sign. Express contracts are oral or written things are legally binding agreements, or implied contracts. A contract elements include the agreement, consideration, contractual capacity, and legality. Agreement is when a valid offer is made and accepted. So let's say you're buying a house or you're wanting to buy a house and you are offering a certain amount of money for the house. The author and the offer and the acceptance must express a voluntary intent to be bound. What that means is, I'm offering this money, you're accepting this money, and what's going to happen is that the house is going to now be mine. When a person makes an offer and then another person changes it, the second person is making what's called a counteroffer. I offer you $400,000 for this house. You say, no, I want $420,000, and that's the counteroffer. If there's a mistake, if there's fraud, if there's threats, or if there's undue influence, meaning that your free will for some reason has been manipulated by somebody, then that would invalidate an agreement. That would not be a genuine agreement. Consideration is something of value exchanged for something else of value. Okay, so that's where you can kind of exchange money, a promise, or a performed service. If one person is to receive something but gives nothing in return, the contract may not be enforceable. The idea behind consideration is that each party to the agreement receives something of value. So you can't just give somebody a house for nothing legally. You have to have some kind of consideration, some kind of exchange of something of value in order to make it a legally binding agreement. Contractual capacity, this refers to the competence or legal ability of the parties to enter a contract. So this means that if you are entering a contract, both people need to be considered competent, meaning not of having any kind of mental illness, making sure that they are capable of understanding what's going on in the contract. Minors have limited contractual capacity, which means they may legally set aside contractual obligations. And then legality. To be legally enforced, a contract has to have a lawful purpose. So some contracts have a special form in order to be legally enforceable. Skipping to the bottom, when a document is notarized, the signature is verified by a notary public, which basically says this is official. Every state has statutes of frauds to prevent harm. So if there's a fraudulent contract, the law requires that some contracts be in writing and signed to be legally binding. So contracts for real estate, contracts that cannot be performed in less than a year, contracts involving the sale of goods $500 and over, etc. These need to be, protected from fraud. I'm not going to go through all this. Make sure that you're being responsible when you are agreeing to something. You can pause and look more if you want to. A negotiable instrument is an unconditional written promise to pay a specific sum of money upon demand by the holder. Common negotiable instruments are checks or promissory notes. So a check is, if you write a check, you are promising to pay this amount of money at some point in the future when the person you're paying the check to demands it. That's all it means. It's a piece of paper that says, I will pay you this money when you need it. So if you're paying somebody with a check for, I don't know, painting your house, when they go to get that check paid, it's going to pull money from your account and put it to their account. That's all a check is. That's a negotiable instrument. A promissory note is a written promise, you can see the word in there, promissory, to pay a certain amount of money at a specified date. So the legal document, payment can be enforced by law. The parties who are involved is the maker, is the person who creates and signs the promissory note, and the payee is the person to whom the note is made payable to. You might have a cosigner, who's the person who promises to pay the debt of another person. There are a few other things. Warranties, also called a guarantee. It's a statement that says we're guaranteeing the quality and performance of a product, usually for a certain period of time. If the product fails, then usually the warranty will say what kind of recourse you have. So you might have a warranty on a product for a year. If it fails within a year, then you get a refund or you get additional parts or something like that. So as you begin to accumulate your records, you should have a good filing system. So you want to organize it, you want to be able to store it, you want to be able to retrieve those pretty easily. So one good option is paper filing system with folders, labels, have a filing cabinet. Another advantage of another way to do it is electronic. So computer systems could help you very easily update information, erase records, storage and retrieval, make new computations and comparisons much easier. There's also a lot of software programs that can help you to keep records. So spreadsheets or databases. I would highly suggest using a spreadsheet as you're making a budget. And that is it for chapter 8.